like to welcome everybody. Some new faces this week, which is always exciting. We definitely have opened our doors every Sunday this summer, and there's been this flux of people that have joined us. Sometimes we'll have, we were talking about it earlier, we'll have 20 people here, and sometimes we'll have 4. But it's always exciting that people can join us to be a part of what we're doing, to allow themselves the opportunity for spiritual growth and to listen to a message and to take that message and to apply it into the everyday that we do. The messages that people are hearing every Sunday are also being posted on YouTube. And so if you can't make it on a Sunday, we do record all of these, the sermon part of it, the service part of it, and do post the message online as well too, so you can watch it at your convenience, share it with your friends, re-watch it, just to kind of really gain an understanding of the message that we're trying to share with everybody today. So, like Jerry had talked about, we are talking about the theme for the summer is Rise of the Phoenix, and it is about a rebirth, personal rebirth, and our journey in trying to find our purpose, which is always changing. It's always evolving into something that sometimes we may be confused by, something that may look familiar, may not look familiar, and that rebirth can also be something that maybe we don't agree with at the time because it just doesn't fit with what we know. Yet, with the powers that be, they're going to put you in a position where who you are as an individual, the gifts that you have, the talents that you have are going to be maximized to be able to create change in your life and be able to create change in the lives of others. Last week, Jerry presented a message, and he had music, which is a great way to send a message. People, I think we can all wrap our brains around music. We all have a specific genre of music that we enjoy. We all have a specific artist that we enjoy, and some of the reasons that we enjoy that is because of the message that's being sent through that music. Last week, Jerry had actually the drums over here, and he had set them up, and he was using the drums to create a conversation between, I believe at that time it was a child and an adult. And so he would start playing, and you were to visualize this conversation that was going on between a child and an adult. And it was right on point. If you allowed yourself to listen to what was going on, you could see the conversation happening. And so Jerry would begin by drumming, and it was very, in the beginning, it was very rhythmic, it was very methodical, it was very soothing. And as the conversation went on, you could actually see the conversation switch by the way he was playing the drums. One drum got a little bit louder, and then the other drum got a little bit louder. One drum, the beating got a little bit more chaotic, and then the other drum got a little bit more chaotic. And so it was kind of like this ping pong effect that was going on between the drums, and you could actually see the conversation that was going on, which I thought was a great way to express through music conversations that we have on a daily basis. And those conversations can not only be with our kids, but they can be with coworkers, they can be with our spouses, and they can even be with employers. When he was playing the drums, one of the things that I was thinking about was a conversation that I actually had with a fellow employer, where it started out very, very methodical. It was very thought out. The conversation was going along very well, and then something happened through the conversation where it then switched, and all of a sudden the drumming increased and began to become a little bit more louder, a little bit more upbeat, and then it kind of mellowed back down, and so it was almost like this roller coaster effect. And so I thought that was great. If you were not here that week, last Sunday, I definitely encourage you to go on YouTube. I believe it'll hopefully be up later today or sometime first part of this week, and you'll be able to see that, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Allow yourself the opportunity to wrap your mind around what's going on in the message that he's giving, which I thought at that time was great. Through that message, it showed to us that there's a conversation that happens between us and, for the most part, ourselves, because even the drums represented conversations that we have internally. Okay? We have an idea of what we want to do, yet there's something internal that's telling us you're not fit to do that. Maybe you don't have the experience to do that or the knowledge to do that. And so we have these like internal arguments with ourselves. And again, when you hear the drumming, you'll be able to kind of understand that. I think we have that a lot, whether it's in our professional lives, okay, looking for the opportunity for an advancement. And we have this internal conversation with ourselves of, I know that I want the advancement. I know that I want to apply for this position. And then there's a part of you that says, yeah, but are you ready for it? Can you handle the responsibilities that are coming with it? And so again, we have this ping pong conversation, this drumming conversation with ourselves, and we actually can get frustrated with ourselves within our own conversation, which when that happens to me, I actually find that to be kind of funny because I'm actually arguing with myself. And so we see that a lot. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to roll that conversation of where you are today, okay, and where your greater purpose lies. Because through that conversation, that drumming back and forth, in that you're going to find things out about yourself, and you're going to find the direction that your life needs to take to gain that level, that higher level of understanding, and to gain a level of what your higher purpose is. Because we all have a bigger purpose than what we're serving now. At times we can get caught in, it almost feels like a rut. Like, this is it. This is my life. This is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to, get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, make my coffee, be on the road by 8, punch in by 8:30, do my paperwork, punch out by 4:30. I mean, our lives become very systematic, and we become too comfortable with that. Okay, and so today's conversation is going to be about that, about things that happen in your life that's going to send you in a different direction that you maybe didn't even realize existed. But your higher purpose isn't down this road that you thought it was, it's actually down this road. And so one of the stories that I want to talk about today, when I was thinking about how I would like to present this, I was thinking about a bunch of different stories and kind of, events in history, things that people could relate to that would help them gain a better understanding of having that idea of this is the way my life is supposed to go, and all of a sudden something happening, an event happening that totally took them off course. And the one story that I thought about and actually heard and really began to investigate and meditate on is actually the story of Moses, which I find to be enlightening when you really begin to think about the story. Okay, not the conclusion, all right, of him leading people out of Egypt. Okay, but the process that he took to get to that point. When we're talking about the rise of the phoenix, we're talking about a process. Okay, we're not necessarily talking about the end point, which is the phoenix actually, rising up out of the ashes. We're talking about first falling into ashes, all right, recollecting ourselves, and then slowly begin to move out of what we were in, okay? And so we're going to talk about the process that Moses went through. And so Moses, at a very extremely young age, when he was an infant, was actually, at that time, there was a lot going on in history between cultures, between races. There was this idea that if you were born into a specific race or specific culture, this was the life that you would have. And that life would consist of essentially just slavery. And that's all your life would be. Your life, your whole purpose of your life would be to serve other people. And that was it. It was reinforced. It was reinforced by your elders. It was reinforced by your community. And it was even reinforced by the people that were taking advantage of you, saying, you'll never amount to anything. This is your purpose. This is your job. And so at that time, Moses' mother felt that he needed to break out of that he needed an opportunity to be something different. And so as you know, if you've heard the story, she places him in a basket and sends him down the river. where he is found by an Egyptian, not just an Egyptian, but actually royalty. And through the process that the royalty goes through, they rescue Moses and they take him in as one of his own. Okay? Moses is not Egyptian, he's Hebrew. But the Egyptians take him in as one of their own, and they begin to raise him as one of their own. And so he begins to live this life that is very different than what he would have lived if he was a Hebrew. Hebrews at that time, again, this is the path that you're on. You will never amount to anything more than this, where Egyptians, they lived in luxury. And so here's Moses being pampered, okay? And he wears the finest clothes, and he wears the finest jewelry. And as he begins to get older, the Egyptians began to see, okay, we know that he's a Hebrew, and he's beginning to look more like a Hebrew, and so we're going to change that about him. And so they would shave his head, because besides skin color, another way to tell the difference between Egyptians and Hebrews was the hair. Okay, the way the hair grew. And so they shaved Moses' head and they made him don a wig. So it made him appear more like an Egyptian, even though internally he was still a Hebrew. And so Moses continues to live his life as an Egyptian. And deep down, he kind of sees that there are definitely some similarities that he has between himself and the Hebrews, but he's being raised as an Egyptian. It's continuously reinforced that this is the lifestyle that he will live. And this is the lifestyle that the Hebrews will live. And so he continues to live his life in the lap of luxury. As time goes on, as many of our lives go on, things happen in our lives where we all of a sudden are forced to take a drastic turn, forced to just veer off the path that we're on. Okay, we get laid off from our job. Our relationship ends. One of our spouses get offered a new job out of state. Okay, a lot of different things happen, which forces us to break off of this path that we've known, and the only path that we've known, and the only path that people have told us that this is all you will know. And for Moses, it was actually the murder of an Egyptian. Okay, Moses was involved in that murder. And soon what's happening is that everybody is reminding him, especially the Hebrews are reminding him of what happened. You know, and we have that in our own lives where things happen in our past and people continue to bring up what you did. Oh, don't forget what you did. Don't forget what you did. And it becomes so much for Moses that Moses actually feels the only way he can get away from that is to run away. Is to leave the life that he has known, to leave that comfortable lifestyle, the gold and the fine cloth and all of these things, and just leave. And so he does, and he leaves, and he heads into the desert. Okay? Now, we can all relate to this because here's a man who has pretty much been waited on hand and foot. Food has been brought to him. Grapes have been actually placed in his mouth, donned with beautiful jewelry. And now he is going into an environment where he will have to fend for himself, entirely for himself. And he knows nothing of the environment that he's in. All he knows is that where he was, he didn't want to be there anymore because of being reminded of what he did, the guilt that he felt from his own behavior. And so now he's moving himself into an environment that he knows nothing about. And so now he is forced to rethink his survival process. He no longer has people bringing him food. Now he has to go out and find food. And the thing about the desert is it's extremely barren. You know, it's not like traveling up our road, and if you want food, you just go to your local grocery store, or you go to a restaurant or anything like that. I mean, you really have to scavenge. And here's somebody who has never had to look for any of his food, and now he is forced to go out and actually find his food. And so he spends a few days thinking he's got it all figured out, like most of us do when we find ourselves in a new environment, like, you know what, I can handle this. But he soon realizes that everything he was taught over here cannot be applied to what's over here. And so, for example, we were talking about rugby earlier today, and if you're a great rugby player and you have the ability to be an all-star on the rugby field, that does not make you a great chef. The skills that you have learned as a rugby player, for the most part, cannot be applied to being a great chef. You will have to learn a whole new set of skills to become successful over here. And that's where Moses was. Moses was in the same position, where now he had to learn a whole new set of skills in order for himself to be successful. And within a very short amount of time, he found himself to be in a very bad situation. He's hungry, he's thirsty, okay? And as he's beginning to contemplate his own death, he is saved by a tribe of Midianites. And this tribe comes along, and here he is, still donned in his gold and in his silk outfits, and still looking very much like a prince. And this tribe of Midianites, ask him, how's that gold working out for you here in the desert? How are those silk clothings working out for you here in the desert? And Moses begins to realize, you're right, everything that I have here cannot be applied to surviving in the environment that I'm here. And so the Midianites take him in, and they allow him to work for him. And the first thing they're going to do is they're going to tell him, your job is to take care of sheep. Now, here's somebody who has never worked a day in his life, and now he's being told that you're going to work. Work? What's work? I've never had to work a day in my life. And so he begins to learn from this tribe on how to survive in the desert. As they walk, this is where you find water. Okay, these are the plants that you can eat. These are the plants that you can't eat. Okay, this is where you'll find food. This is where you'll find shade. You know what? It's going to be hot out today. You're going to want to take some of those layers off. Okay, it's going to get cold tonight. You're going to want to put some of those layers on. So they're teaching him. He's picking up this whole new skill set to survive in the desert. Okay? And if you're familiar with the story, you know why. You know why he has to learn this skill set. Okay? The reason he has to learn the skill set is because you can't lead people through something you've never been through in your life. If he were to lead people through the desert dressed in his silk and his gold, the story would have ended different. But now he's learning this process. Okay? He is starting to see that everything that he's learning is going to be applicable later in his life. And so the story continues to go where he continues to spend time in the desert with this tribe. And as time goes on, matter of fact, 40 years, okay, when Moses made his move to move his people out of Egypt, he was 80 years old. That's when his purpose was brought to him, is when he was 80. Me being 39 and thinking about, wow, do I have to wait until I'm 80 to find my purpose? That can be somewhat frustrating, yet you will be given the opportunity to move to that higher level when the time is right. And so how do we know when the time is right? Well, here's what happens with Moses. Moses is one day walking outside in the evening, and a bush ignites. Okay? A bush actually starts on fire. And Moses at first walks by the bush. Okay? And as he walks by the bush, he then stops and turns around. Okay? When you read the story, it's not that Moses was called and then he went to the bush. No. He walked by the bush, saw the bush, and then turned around, and it was at that time that God spoke to him. If you walk by something, okay, and it does not catch your attention, it wasn't meant for you. When he walks by the bush, he sees the bush, turns around, now God knows that he's got his attention. God knows that Moses is interested in what's going on, and now he can give Moses his message. When I was thinking about that, I thought about last summer. I had to work for my employer. I had to work at the state fair. And thousands and thousands of people at the state fair. And my job was to talk to people about Alzheimer's. And so here you are at the state fair, and my employer says, okay, you need to get out there and really push this Alzheimer's program that you have, which I was kind of conflicted with because I'm like, okay, people are having fun. The state fair is a great time. They're eating corn dogs. I mean, they're really having a good time. And now you want me to go up to them and say, I know you're having a great time, but what I'd like to talk to you about is I'd like to talk to you about Alzheimer's. Okay, that's a tough conversation to have, especially at the state fair. And so here I am, and my directive is to stand out in front of, and I'm not kidding you, where our booth was set up, by the hour you would have easily 600 people walk by the front of your booth every hour. Okay, my job is to frantically run around and pass out these flyers to people that are coming by. For every 100 people that walked by, 99 of them wouldn't touch what I had. And the one person, the 1% that did touch it, the one person that actually took the flyer, looked at it, and just gave it right back to me. It wasn't meant for them. And here I am frantically trying to go out there and, here, you want to talk about Alzheimer's, you want to talk about Alzheimer's. And pretty soon, I started to narrow it down and just say, okay, well, I'm actually going to look to see who may be interested in Alzheimer's, right? So instead of handing it out to 600 people that walk by, now I'm going to narrow it down and say, okay, anybody that appears to be over the age of. That's who I'm going to go to. And still, same thing. People are throwing it away. No. It became rather frustrating because I wanted to talk to people about Alzheimer's, but nobody wanted to hear about it. The message wasn't for them. And so what I did is I decided that I would step back. Huge sign said right here, it said free memory screening right here on a banner. And then it said, we'd like to talk about Alzheimer's. And so what I did is I took that sign and I actually put it out in front where everybody could see it. And then I put a stool right next to it and I just sat there. And as people began to walk by, you would see somebody walk by, read the sign, get a few feet past it, and turn around. And it was at that time that I knew that that person was interested in what was going on. And that's when I could take the information that I had, the knowledge that I had about that specific topic, and begin to talk to them about it. Begin to change their thought process on what they thought about Alzheimer's. Begin to run, we did memory screening, so it wasn't like a formal diagnosis, but it was a baseline. We were able to give people baseline assessments, screenings on where they were at with their memory. And it began to really change people's lives because people started to see, wow, maybe my memory isn't what it was. Or it's better than I thought it was going to be. And it's still a very hard conversation to have with people anytime you're talking about something medical, especially Alzheimer's. Yet, here I am applying that same concept with Alzheimer's and getting people to listen to the message that I have. And God was doing the same thing with Moses. God wasn't out there saying, Moses, follow me, because he knew he wasn't ready for it. And so as Moses walks by the burning bush, he turns around, and that's God's moment to say, all right, now you're ready. Now we can have that talk. Now we can talk about moving you to the next level. And so he turns around, and the conversation happens between God and Moses. And God begins to tell Moses, everything that you've gone through while you were in the desert hasn't been a waste of your time. Sure, you've spent 40 years in the desert waiting for me to come to you with my message. Yet, every day that you spent, you were learning. You were learning that new skill set. Because remember, You can't lead people through somewhere you've never been. Now Moses has that ability, all right, to survive as he travels with his people through the desert. Because now he's telling his people, don't eat that plant. Okay? His people are talking about being thirsty, and he's like, I know where to find water. Okay? His people are complaining about being hungry. I know where to find food. He spent the last 40 years preparing for that. And so when we look at our lives, we see our lives moving in one direction. Like I mentioned earlier, we can get comfortable in that groove, right? The 9 to 5. Coffee time is, some of us have it even down to the point where our coffee maker automatically turns on. Okay? Because you've already pre-programmed the night before. Your ground's already in it, your water's already in it, and it's very systematic. Your life becomes systematic. And we become extremely comfortable with what's going on. As a matter of fact, we were having a conversation earlier, it can become so systematic that every day it's the same thing. You can actually get confused on what day it is, right? And so what's going to happen is that there are burning bushes all around us, okay? They're not literally a burning bush, but there are signs everywhere. The signs for your higher purpose, your higher calling. When we talk about that phoenix coming out of the ashes, it's easy to say, okay, the phoenix rises out of the ashes. Yet when the phoenix rises up, it has a purpose. It has a sense of direction. And it found that in the ashes as it was coming up. And so when you look around your life, you're going to see burning bushes here and burning bushes here. And that's your calling. Okay? That's the sign that you're looking for, that your life needs to head in this direction. Jerry and I talk about, all the time about being called. Okay? And knowing that we have a higher purpose. That the skills that we have for being able to talk with people, to send a message, okay, they won't just be compartmentalized over here. We know that as time goes on, we're going to get a calling that's going to take us over here. And then another calling that's going to take us over here. And pretty soon we're kind of spread out all over, and we're no longer running this straight line, all right, of behavior. And so when you leave today, okay, look at the opportunities that exist around you. If you think that what you read or what you see isn't a higher calling for you to change the direction of your life or to find purpose, new purpose in your life, chances are you're wrong. I was reading a book by Malcolm Gladwell, Blink, okay? And that's what he talks about. He talks about right away, the base of the book essentially is that your initial thought 9 out of 10 times is correct when you're thinking about something. Okay? Your brain is able to shuffle through so much information at an extreme rate of speed that as soon as you see something, you automatically know the answer. Yet, 90% of the time, we will actually step back and actually talk ourselves out of why that's not the correct answer. We begin to look at the experiences that we've had. Well, the last time I did this, last time I saw that, how will my friends take it? How will my family take it? All of these different things. Okay? And so we actually talk ourselves out of going down the path that perhaps we were maybe meant to go down. See, your brain is able to take all of that information, all of your life experiences, everything, and almost immediately make a decision based on all of that information and say, this is the answer that you need to give, or this is the way you need to go. Yeah, we then begin to step back and say, I don't know. It's kind of like seeing the burning bush and not turning around but continuing to walk. When you see the bush, turn around. And so when you leave here today, as we always say, take what you have heard, look at ways you can apply it in your everyday, and look at the opportunities that are being presented to you to break outside of this systematic lifestyle that we have. Everything happens for a specific reason. People are brought into your lives for a specific reason. You are meant to hear and see things for a specific reason. Allow yourself to be opened up to that, because within those things that you're being exposed to is the opportunity to move to a newer level of development in your life. Okay? Any questions? All right, that's all I have. Thank you.